Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to my Politics 2100 videocast here on YouTube. So today's episode I'm calling GOP Anti-Vax / Anti-Mask is the latest in the crisis of white narcissism. So this is a political crisis, and I'm using a bunch of categories. It's kind of, I'm going into a territory which I don't generally endorse as a forward-looking political program, because I don't think using racialized categories and which sound very guilt-trippy is not something that I generally endorse. But I think that there's enough data here and enough interesting political and not only interesting but dangerous political action that we need to point out at least some of its racial dimensions, okay? And I just sort of, and again, as a prologue or a precursor, I am someone who believes that a forward-looking political program is going to be universalistic in its approach. It's not generally going to it's going to try to combat racism and sexism and transphobia. It's going to be there's a number of different separate prejudices and historical wrongs that it's going to need to right, but that the general focus is on a universalistic, open programs for everybody, okay? It's for every person, no matter what biological markers they carry. So I'm not a big endorser of the use of the word privilege in a guilt-trippy kind of way, talk about white privilege or other kinds of privilege as a good political discourse. But anyway, despite this, I think we have enough of a history now, so we see that the right wing has organized itself around white racial identity and the sense of a wounded white pride or white self that is the definition of a narcissistic wound. So narcissism is a psychological phenomenon, which is there's a normal aspect of narcissism and there's an abnormal aspect of narcissism, or it can become pathological, okay? And we have, I believe in our society, there are tendencies toward narcissism that are strong, and that our society tends to reward a narcissistic approach to the self and to your own being. So it's something that's widely, it's not just a small category of people that are struggling with narcissistic issues in one form or another. But we have overwhelming, especially the figure of Donald Trump becoming a leader of a political movement. He is an extremely narcissistic person. I've written about that. I'm going to put a link to one of my analyses of him, and I have a background, in psychology and so forth and so on, and I've taken the risk of because I don't currently practice in that field, that I think should be part of public discourse, and people should feel if they study it as lay people, study it and understand it enough, they can use it themselves to at least try to understand themselves and others. And it's a very important and very chimerical or shape-shifting issue in one's own psychology and in the psychology of other people, and it's hard to recognize sometimes, given the background of our society, which is quite narcissistic or narcissism-oriented. So anyway, within that background, you could see then why a figure such as Donald Trump could emerge and become a leader of a political movement, because he is, extremely narcissistic and extremely self-centered. And why would a movement of people choose him as their leader if not for their own narcissistic issues. So now, Robin DiAngelo wrote a book called White Fragility. I'm not trying to endorse that book or endorse her view, but the idea of fragility and her approach is more self-help oriented and sort of organizational psychology and team building form, which is fine to do. It's a fine approach in that context, but as an overall societal approach, that kind of workshopping approach to an issue, political issue, is not going to be sufficient. And so anyway, fragility is an aspect of the narcissistic self. In other words, people who have extreme or narcissism tend to have a vulnerability. There's a vulnerability that they're trying to compensate for. So the theory of narcissism that is pretty widely accepted among psychology and some lay people who have studied it is that the people become overly narcissistic or become excessively narcissistic, excessively self-absorbed and self-referential and grandiose, is because they're compensating for a sense of vulnerability, of feeling small, of feeling, and the vulnerability is what they're constantly pushing against. So anyway, so this general introduction, and so fragility and vulnerability, very similar, concepts, and essentially that's what, in my view, what DiAngelo is discussing, and in our society, it becomes quite clear, especially with the way the Trump presidency and then the movement that he spawned and the way it took over an entire political party, and also the way now it's spinning in some way out of control in our society, and our society is fragmenting. So with too many people who are too excessively focused on their sense of hurt, their sense of ressentiment. So another way to look at the classical view of fascism is that it's a movement of it's about a slight, a sense of slight, a sense of being downgraded, of being stabbed in the back, but in a way that's that somehow you've fallen in the world because of this turn of events that happened a long time ago or just recently, but is an echo of past trauma. So that is also the same idea of narcissism and of the rage. Also behind it is also the rage. So the ragefulness of there's a lot of rage in a narcissistic personality, or people who tend toward narcissism, and so that rage is expressed in the politics of the right wing now. They are full of rage, and they're full of the sense of being slighted. And one of the key now, in 2016 there was an argument. Well, whether is this economic is the slight economic and or is it more a sense of racialized slight, the sense that people of color are getting ahead of white people, or that the government is favoring white people, people of color over white people, therefore that they feel slighted because of that. It's both, okay? It's the sort of the either or, that there are classes of people who are less well-to-do, white people who feel slighted for both reasons, okay? And they feel, but the way it's become mobilized in our society, and the way, in fact, it wasn't permitted until very recently in the Democratic Party, which is the Leftwing Party, which would apply a rationalistic, socialistic approach to improving the lot of everybody and raising up the living standards of people of all colors, and to create a sense of equality and sisterhood, brotherhood between people, okay, by creating a policy that supports that way of being, we have a society that or the political system was allowing more the Trump kind of populism, the fake populism of Trump, rather than the Sanders kind or something even left of Sanders to emerge. And so that was permissible in our society to, in a sense, become fascistic, okay, to become, and I've written, and I think episode 1 was about the way the right wing has been sanitized by the mainstream media, even though, there are many people in the mainstream media, I'm of Jewish heritage, and there are also people who are also of Jewish heritage within the media, but for whatever reason, they have made it easier for some fascists to get through and their ideas to percolate in society more than socialistic views to do the same, okay? And a lot of it has to do with who owns the media and who is more favored by big corporations, and in terms of if you have to choose between populisms, you prefer the right wing, you being the donor class, the ruling elite, the rich, ultra rich, the quasi oligarchy that we have in our society, that they prefer the right-wing version of populism, because it's phony, and it really just continues on the gravy train for the plutocrats, the oligarchs, in a different way, rather than, for instance, and this is a theme of today, or in today's news, taxing the rich to try to reduce the level of inequality, the level of obscene wealth in our society. So this is getting back to, the trigger, or what brought me to this topic is that, Farron Cousins, in one of his videos, which I'll put in the description box today, he was reporting on Lauren Boebert. Again, this is now boilerplate coming from a right-wing politician, a GOP politician, is talking about how, there are, in the past, and I can go into other incidents from earlier days, but today just talking about to a Christian fundamentalist group about how this is basically a holy war against Joe Biden's effort to stem the pandemic through vaccine rules that are sort of mandates, and also some masking suggestions, and as I said in my last video, my second to last video, this is a political sabotage strategy. They're trying to sabotage Joe Biden, but they're trying to sabotage Joe Biden by, now Biden is a white guy, but from the point of view of this far right GOP, or what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a sort of a paranoid racist sentiment or stir it, or among people who, not just among white people, but people of different colors, but to primarily among white people, to become disgusted by. So there's some very deep psychological, subconscious, unconscious themes that are trying to evoke, okay, and they are actually quite good at evoking subconscious and unconscious motivations, much better than the Democrats, okay, and in some sense that power that they have has led to, probably gives them 20 points in any given election over Democrats. So their ability to command the American unconscious, not necessarily all of the American unconscious, but a certain portion of it, with the help of the media, with the help of the veiling of the media, gives them quite a bit of power, because they're kneading and massaging emotions over and over again. And so one of the emotions they're trying to massage is the sense of that blackness and or that consorting with black, in other words, people who, like Joe Biden is a beneficiary of many African American votes, and also, you know, other votes of other groups, and some of his, you know, supporters, some of his supporters in Congress and so forth and so on are people of color, but this goes more to the there is we're talking about psychotic, subconscious, unconscious fears that people have about pollution, being polluted, being dirty, okay, that are often at the base of some racist ideology. The anxieties that these people about purity, about and also another triggering thing, and this is non-rational. So this video is a little ranging over a number of different topics, which I maybe should break out into different videos, but I'm opening up an area of discussion here. So the idea of a vaccine, also masking is one thing. Masking, you know, it covers your face, you would look different. It's scary. It creates a scariness about a person, or then that is, you know, that is goes to childlike, you know, fears about. Now people become used to wearing masks more, but these politicians are trying to stir up these early fears of people wearing masks or looking different. And then the idea, another thing, the injection, or the idea that a vaccine is an injection. They're trying to stir up the anxiety about being injected, especially government injecting you. The idea that there's a government that's penetrating you, and that these are also, I hate to say it, there are also sexual, psychosexual components to this that are mixed up in this political campaign. So and I should make a separate video about that, because it's important, because the right wing has a good grasp on stirring up the unconscious and making people anxious, and making them anxious by a number of different ways. One of the anxieties is about pollution, about being dirty, about other people being dirty, and therefore, and you are clean, and so you don't want to put something in your body like a vaccine that will make your body unclean. And so they're trying. I mean, again, this is all it's non-rational, so it's not. But they're trying to spin it this way, so that they constantly massage these fears, especially the government sticking it into your arm, or it's the idea that it's coming from them. So anyway, you have, and you also have people. I mean, this goes back a few days already, but you have these actors using the history of my people in the Second World War, in the persecution and the extermination campaign of the Nazis, to try to draw sympathy to themselves by saying, well, no, if you get, vaccinated or whatever, this is like, getting a vaccine card is like getting your name tattooed, your number tattooed on your arm, as which happened to Jews in concentration camps in Europe in the Second World War. So or in death camps. So anyway, this what I'm getting back to the topic, or the main, because I'm ranging around because I'm talking about subconscious or unconscious themes, but basically the Donald Trump created this or did create, but he he created the unconscious, the strategy for this this deployment of the unconscious in politics, in particular, not because he's so super aware on a conscious level of his unconscious, but I think he's more aware of it than people give him credit for, not in a self-reflective way, not in a constructive way, but in a destructive way, in a way that divides people, that manipulates people, that gets people going. He knows how to get people going, and he uses his own fears and his own, and he's able to, for instance, said he has a germ phobic, for instance, and he's a clean nut. Okay, this is from decades and decades it's been known about him. So, but he in terms of being germ phobic and so forth and so on, but he is able to find enough resonance and to feel out the society to have created this nexus, which now other people, even if Donald Trump for whatever reason is sidelined and is no longer relevant to Republican politics, he's created this model for mobilizing this sense of hurt, in the sense of emotional fragility, you can say, vulnerability, sense of a lost superiority. So obviously this is about white supremacy, and white supremacy being challenged or being seriously altered and no longer really in place as it was, many decades ago. And so anyway, so this theme of mobilizing people's vanity, people's sense of hurt, pride, and is a way that, and also self-involvement, and it also normalizes people's self-involvement, and that's part of our society. So the pandemic challenges all that. So the pandemic challenges our self-involvement. We need to become more socially minded in a way, because to combat a pandemic, and it's not, we also need to take care of ourselves, but we need to be also, thinking about sort of a general public health measure. So all of this stirs up and provokes this narcissism, or this, and there's narcissism in not only white people have narcissism, or problematic narcissism, but as a group political phenomenon, it is a huge portion of how the Republican Party operates. And I think I will go into more detail in other videos about, in future videos about, how it's being, what particular project is or what particular angle is being mobilized. So anyway, I'll stop here, and let me know if, the comments, if you have any thoughts about, disagreements or, additional thoughts. And also, please, if you like the video, please like it. And also, please subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. And I will see you in the next video.